It's not like you just like one day, whoop, all the moisture just got sucked out of your vagina.
Yeah.
No, that's not what happened. It makes me very angry when you see women being told like, oh, you're going to get to 40 and 50 and your vaginal mucus is going to dry up and you'll have no lubrication and you're all dry. And you're like, well, no, hang on. What I see in women especially is that over the age of 40 or sort of 35 onwards, major problem is hydration. We need liquid in our body, in every single aspect of our body, for health and also for pleasure. It's about the nutrients that we put in, so it's the fuel that we feed the engine, that are really crucial. Those are the really key things in terms of lubrication.
Well, today's conversation is really interesting. Lubrication matters. We were talking about what is lubrication, where is it in your tissues, why do you need to pay attention to it, and what sort of things you can do to pay attention to and support lubrication in your body, in various stages of life, in a boy's body, in a girl's body, no matter who you are.
If you want to know more, have a listen. Lube matters. Lube is essential. It is an essential thing, lubrication in general, because we need oils and we need liquid in our body, in every single aspect of our body, for health and also for pleasure. So, when we hear lubrication, we just think of sex, right? We think of like lube that you're using in sex. And that's also important, right? Because friction isn't that fun. It's a big part of sex. We want to have that kind of slipperiness, that sensitivity, that feeling of glide. And also that's the same all over our body, isn't it? I mean, we have mucous membranes in our nose, we have them in our mouth, we have them in our gut, we have them on the internal surface of our vagina and our anus, our eyes. We need all of them to be working in order to be healthy.
Yeah, but it's not even just there. It's also in our cells, in the space between our cells, in our red blood cells, in all of the things. Like we're born at, what is it, like 95% water as an infant, and we die roughly, I know this is like highly debated, but at something like 70%, we, like humans, can survive with less than 70% body content of water. So we're made of 70% water. Of course lubrication matters. Like literally water is life. I think it's just, there's no place that it doesn't matter. What's really interesting is where it starts to show up as a problem. Yeah. In terms of the surfaces that are exposed to more of the outside world, like you get a dry throat and then you get an infection in your throat because your mouth's open all the time. And that's where most of those bacteria get in. And that's what is happening back here with your tonsils, which are sensing what's going on. But these little, it's kind of weird because if you look at your tonsils up close, you can't see it with the microscope, let's say, you have all these like little cuts in the surface. Like it's like this ribbed surface that's constantly, like, stuff's going through and into it all the time. Like they're not a contiguous smooth surface at all. So it's taking in and sampling its environment all the time and deciding whether there's invaders to attack it. And if that surface becomes dried out, what happens is bacteria do start to latch onto those surfaces and then do start to proliferate and become an infection. The same with all our internal surfaces. When we have this thicker mucous membrane, that's what helps our body to repel invaders. Drying out or thinning of the mucous membrane is the beginning of inflammation, ulceration, infection, cancer, the start of cancer stuff as well. So many things, because you're getting like underlying, it's the massive trigger to your body. If your internal surfaces are being touched by things from the outside world, your body's like, shouldn't be there. Massively shouldn't be there.
Yeah, and it's what I see in women especially is that over the age of 40 or sort of 35 onwards, major problem is hydration. Essentially, in so many ways. It's in like how lustrous our hair is, how glowy our skin is, how able we are to have sex in a pleasurable way, how well are we digesting our food, but also it's in our joints, it's in our interstitial tissues, it's in all of our fascia. Like, how are we moving? How is stuff flowing? And I think it's about, ultimately, like you said, we're watery beings and we need to flow. We just have to have flow. Once there's stagnation, there's a problem. Like you're saying, stagnation creates a holding, creates too much surface contact, creates a problem. And so we need to be looking at hydration, but we need to be looking at hydration in oils, especially internally in our diet, externally on the things we put on our skin, and then also practically in our lifestyle in terms of our movement practices and our breath practices too.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's tough to know how much is enough and what means lubrication, because lubrication stems from obviously hydration, which is the thing that people think of as obvious. But also it stems from fatty acids as well, right? Because it's like fats in our diet have a big role to play in terms of helping with our barrier, our sebum barrier on our skin. So largely that's made up of fatty acids, cholesterol, waxy compounds, all this sort of amazing stuff, which is again this kind of protective net. The same with our eyes, right? The lubrication in our eyes relies on omega-3 and omega-7 fats in order to, like the tear film, it's kind of an amazing thing. The same with our hair follicles. There's all these little fatty acids that congregate around there in order to make healthy, lustrous hair. And when those things aren't happening, if there aren't enough fats in the diet, or if there's other things going on with like contact with major surfactants, so things that, actually this is such an important point, but like the thing that we do to clean ourselves is essentially the worst thing for our body's natural protection, which is mental, because your body has this instinct towards producing substances that help to prevent drying out of its own surfaces and prevent bacterial adhesion, like we were talking about. But all the things that we use to clean our skin of those potential bacteria are things that further dry it out. So things that cause foaming agents, which are called surfactants, those are things that break down the acid mantle, break down that sebum barrier, break down the mucous membrane as well when it gets in contact, like anytime internally as well, which is why surfactants are so bad internally, and like they always have come with these like do not eat, warnings on them. But yeah, so I think we have like thrown the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to cleaning, and I think the notion of nurturing hydration internally without like stripping it. We see it like in lip balm. It's the most of it. That's where people, and that's the only place where people, I think, acknowledge this dehydration, the thing, right? Must put oils on top of my lips to prevent them from dehydrating.
Yeah.
Like, you don't put shampoo on your lips. You put oils on there.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so true. And I think, you see it in the beauty industry. I see it with my clients all the time, that when I say to them, like, what do you do to clean your face? And it's always like, well, I cleanse with a wash cleanser, and then I double cleanse. So then I use a cream cleanser, and then I use this and that. And there's like a list of millions of things. And then we have skin problems, because what we're doing is we're disrupting the microbiome on the skin, then stripping off all of the oils. And then the body goes, oh my God, I don't know what to do. So it either overproduces oils and you end up with like spots and sebum issues, or it underproduces oils and you end up with dryness and psoriasis and inflammation. And then because we have these issues, instead of allowing the skin to rebalance itself and putting in hydrating things that are really natural, what we do is just buy more and more product, which we put on, which further strips those layers. And then we're addicted to those products because we think that they're the only thing that can solve it.
Exactly. And that is the major misunderstanding of nature, in that we think nature is a complicated system, i.e. it's got this like thing, we do X, Y, Z and these things come out, but it's kind of complicated. Actually, it's a complex system where there are variables that we can't even understand happening. Complex systems like the weather, we put an intervention out here, like the butterfly flaps its wings and it causes a tornado over there. We don't know how that happens. And the problem is, if you take a complex system like your face and this amazing kind of management of the skin thing that's happening by itself, intentionally, and will happen for the rest of your life, touch it with cleanser or double cleanser or not. And then we go, but hang on, I need to correct it here. And if I correct it here, then I hold it there. And I put this to that, and I affect the pH with that, and I affect the light with that. Then you've created a complex system, then you have to manage, but you can't. So of course it goes wrong. And of course, like, you do something for like 6 months and like you say, I've got this amazing routine from XYZ influencer and it's got like 19 products in it. And it works for you because you've taken your incorrect or mal-corrected skin and you've said like, here's a protocol and program, and it's got this really fine window where it can work. But it won't work forever. It stops working because ultimately you've misunderstood that your body is trying to constantly manage the thing that you're mismanaging for it, right?
Yeah, I know. And I think that's why it's so important to understand that in terms of bodily health, it's about the nutrients that we put in. So it's the fuel that we feed the engine that are really crucial. And then it's like how we mind that engine and how often we move that engine. Those are the really, really key things in terms of lubrication, because if we're not looking at it from the inside out, we end up with this kind of managing symptoms, pathologizing of the thing. And we're looking at it in that one area. And it makes me very angry when you see women being told like, oh, you're going to get to 40 and 50 and you're going to have your vaginal mucus is going to dry up and you'll have no lubrication and you're all dry. And you're like, well, no, hang on. It's not like you're just like one day, whoop, all the moisture just got sucked out of your vagina. Yeah. No, that's not what happened. What happened is you got really tired. You weren't being taught how to manage your menopause properly. You stopped moving enough, or you started moving too aggressively. Your diet wasn't working properly. No one was giving you support. And you're just getting these aggressors that are happening and being told that something's wrong. And then, of course, something's going wrong because you're like, oop, shit, everything's awful.
Yeah.
And so it's just about simplifying. I think that the message here is like, lubrication matters. oils matter, your diet matters, your movement matters. And it's really about inputting movement and flow and oils throughout the whole systemic body in order for everything to be healthy.